Now, at 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Spurs host West Ham. Spurs are currently 14th in the Premier League table, 6 points away from a possible Champions League spot in 5th, and 6 points above 17th, where, of course, Spurs finished last season under former boss Ange Postecoglou. West Ham, under Nuno Espirito Santo, under severe pressure right now, are sitting in the relegation zone in 18th. They're 7 points behind 17th place Nottingham Forest. They have played 21. They have only won 3 games all season so far. They've drawn 5 and lost 13. They have a goal difference of minus 21. Of course, Spurs have just signed Conor Gallagher for £34.7 million from Atletico Madrid, a huge signing for Spurs. And Thomas Frank, on the team news ahead of this game, he has stated that Richarlison unfortunately got a hamstring injury. It will keep him out for up to 7 weeks. Lucas Bergvall could be available, hopefully be available on Saturday. Yves Bissouma is back, so he is available as well. Destiny Udogie and Dominic Solanke are close to finishing a good week of training, so they are a bit closer. Both will be involved and available against West Ham, but they are closer to playing even more minutes, so that is positive news. They look good, both of them. Now, Gareth, surely Spurs are going to win this game at home. It's going to be an entertaining game, and Spurs are going to get the 3 points against this very poor West Ham team. Surely.
Don't ask for much, do you, Chris? I think we would all like to see that. But I think when two teams arrive in pretty poor form, it does be a very cagey affair. It would be great if Spurs went out and sweep the floor and put West Ham to the sword. But although Spurs are favourites, I think, I don't think it'll be a completely one-sided scoreline. It's going to be difficult. We know, can set teams up to be solid and difficult to break down. They're not going to be too expansive. They're probably going to look to play on the counter-attack. The onus is going to be on Spurs to try and break them down. Although we beat West Ham earlier in the season, West Ham's always a tricky game for Tottenham. We've stumbled across West Ham, poor West Ham teams in the past. So they tend to lift themselves for this fixture. It's a huge game for them. They're in a battle to stay up. Nuno's fighting for his life, fighting for his job. So no, I expect West Ham to arrive and give us a real test in terms of being difficult to beat. It's up to Spurs to show that quality to break them down. The good news is, as you mentioned, if we've got Conor Gallagher, Lucas Bergvall, Dominic Solanke, Destiny Udogie all in the squad, that looks a little bit stronger than we've had in recent weeks. Although Richarlison and Bentancur is a big losses, those players coming in would definitely give us more strength and depth.
What have you made of the feedback from the Spurs fans, particularly online, that we look at every day on social media about the signing of Conor Gallagher? Because a lot of people are very excited. There are one or two, I say one or two, there are, quite a few people who are saying that this isn't a good signing. Personally, for me, I think it's a great signing. Very solid physicality in the centre of midfield. Very good offensively, defensively. The work rate, the energy, everything about him, I really like, I must say. I'm very excited about this signing. And yes, Spurs need a lot more. And I think that is the key thing here, that it is imperative that Spurs keep signing real quality impact players to improve this team so we can climb up that Premier League table. Because when I said earlier, Gareth, that 6 points away from 5th, but also 6 points above, 17th, it's like in this second part of the season, where do Spurs go? Because if we want to make this, finish as a successful season, particularly, when we had a poor first half of the season, we've got to finish in a European spot. We have to do that. And also, what I want to ask you, Conor Gallagher is one thing, but Dominic Solanke walking in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium before the FA Cup clash, a lot of people were very surprised, and he was absolutely beaming, waving up to his friends and family in the stands. The smile on his face, it just said it all.
Of course, it's been a difficult few months for Dominic Solanke, injured since August. I've no doubt mentally he was suffering, because he is the type of player that wants to come on and help the team. I'm a big fan. I've always liked him. Thought he was brilliant at Bournemouth. Thought he had a decent first season at Spurs. Second season was a couple of injury problems there, but again, he had some big impacts, especially in that Europa League run. Scoring a penalty against Frankfurt was a huge penalty to take out in Frankfurt to get us through into the semi-final. Scored in the semi-final as well from the penalty spot. So it's good to have him back. I think we probably need to be patient with him. He's had a long injury layoff, so we can't put too much pressure on him this early on. His game time's going to have to be managed because we don't want any setbacks. And with Richarlison injured, it's really important that he has managed to the best of the club's ability. So the 1 or 2% of fans that you mentioned there, Chris, about Conor Gallagher, the only thing I can think of is the Chelsea connection because, one, does he improve us? Yes. Does he walk straight into the first 11? Yes. Has he got something that we need? Yes. Energy, legs, commitment. Where's his heart in his sleeve? He's running ability on and off the ball. He's the amount of times he wins the ball back. He likes to play forward. He scores goals. And if you look at that last season he had at Chelsea, it was unbelievable. And it was a lot of Chelsea fans were really upset that he was sold to Atletico Madrid. So no, I think we've got a great deal there. And often in January when you sign players, you're not quite sure if they're going to hit the ground running. But with Conor Gallagher, you're getting a player that knows the league. He's got European experience as well. I would be surprised if Conor Gallagher needed much time to get up to speed. So I would expect a decent performance if he plays against West Ham on Saturday. So huge game, Chris. You referenced it there in terms of where Spurs going to be. The next 2 games, West Ham and Burnley. If you don't win those games, you look at our fixtures in February. It could be a really difficult second half of the season if we don't get 6 points out of these next 2 games because we're not going to win every game in February. There's a lot of difficult games in there. So these next 2 games are must win, and starting with West Ham on Saturday.
Yeah, when you look at those Feb fixtures, we're playing both Manchester clubs, Newcastle and Arsenal, and we've got 3 of those at home. But yeah, huge games. Our last 4 in all competitions, we haven't won. 2 draws against Brentford and against Sunderland, and then most recently losing away at Bournemouth, and then of course losing the FA Cup game against Aston Villa. West Ham, you say about winning games, against the teams around you. They haven't done that. They got absolutely battered 3-0 against Wolves at Molineux, giving Wolves their first win of the Premier League campaign. And then recently losing 2-1 at home against 17th place Nottingham Forest, giving them that buffer now of 7 points. It is a mountain to climb for Nuno Espirito Santo. However, they did win their last game at home, 2-1 against QPR in the FA Cup. So, of course, they're in the FA Cup 4th round. But in league competition, if you are going to get out of the relegation zone and survive and be a Premier League team next year, you have to be winning games like that. And they've lost both of them. And I reference that Wolves game again. That was a poor performance, Gareth, wasn't it?
Very poor performance. And if you think about now, they've played Wolves twice and Nottingham Forest twice. So they've lost opportunities now to try and take points off those teams when they play them. So that's a body blow. Wolves was a disaster. Wolves could have won that game by as many as they wanted. I thought Nuno would be in big trouble after that game. It was a bit of a better performance against Nottingham Forest. Controversial penalty. But I think Nuno's reign depends on this game. I think if Spurs beat them and beat them the way Wolves beat them, I think it's very difficult to see how he stays on. I think they'll panic and try and get somebody else on to see if they can inspire a kind of comeback or some sort of bounce because, as you say, the 7 could be more by the end of the weekend. They need to start winning football matches. And West Ham did not plan to be playing Championship football when they moved to that stadium. So there will be a lot of itchy fingers there and trigger fingers. And I do think Nuno probably needs some sort of result to stay in his role on Saturday.
We all know, as Spurs fans, that West Ham always raise their game against Spurs. Now, previous meetings, 131, Spurs 157, West Ham 45, the other 29 finishing as a draw. Now, earlier this season, on the 13th of September, Spurs went to the London Stadium and won 3-0, and it was a very, very comfortable win. A lot of West Ham fans were going out of the stadium early because there was no fight from them, even back in September. Of course, they've changed their manager. Tim Sherwood on Sky the other day called this game El Sacchio.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because it's difficult to see if West Ham won this game, and if you've mentioned the recent form there in terms of they lost to Nottingham Forest and they were battered by Wolves, Thomas Frank's position is going to be under more scrutiny. Then you've got the Champions League game against Dortmund, and then Burnley's, and then Frankfurt. So this money cycle, the next 4 games are going to be crucial to Tottenham's season. I don't know what they think of this all. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming out from the club. If you look at the Johnny Heitengate appointment, that Thomas Frank was pictured and the announcement with him, is that a sign of loyalty, a sign of we're backing this man?
Yeah,
it
is.
That's what you would take from it. But results have got to improve, and I don't mean long term. I mean in this next short period, because if we
but
don't,
he keeps telling us we finished 17th last season.
He can't keep saying that. But if we don't get the results in these next few games, will there be any Tottenham fans out there going into February with any hope that they can pick up points against some of the stronger teams in the league? And then if you come out of that period, the season's almost over, really, when you go into March. If this next run of games, as you mentioned there, in the league, West Ham, Burnley, Newcastle, Man City, Man United, and Arsenal, I mean, if we don't win enough games there, the chances of European football are completely over, in my opinion. So the season kind of is going to unravel one way or the other in the next sort of 45 weeks. And it's got to be in a positive way. But I have my reservations. I do think I'll be a bit of positive here. I do think performances against Villa in that second half and Bournemouth were a lot better than what we've seen at the likes of Brentford, even at Crystal Palace, Sunderland. So I do think the Bournemouth was more of an all-round performance. The first half against Villa was dreadful, but the second half was very, very good. So we need to find a way of getting a consistent 90 minutes out of this group. Interestingly, we've played some of our best football, Chris, when we've been behind in games. So is it a tactical issue? Are the players just taking it upon themselves when they're two goals down to go and try and make something happen? Because it seemed like Xavi Simons burst into life in that second half, and he was making things happen around him. But in that first half, the ball moves so slowly. He's no real room to move on, and he just looks quite frustrated. So I would like to see Spurs open the game up against West Ham, put them under real pressure, and try and get some sort of patterns and sort of, relationships building, because we're not going to get through these run of games playing the kind of football we've been playing in the first half of the season. It's got to be those, that 45 minutes against Aston Villa. The first half against Sunderland was decent. Bournemouth, I think, was a decent performance. We need to find a better level than that as well. So, huge game against West Ham. Got to start well. Got to get the fans on side. And as you said, Chris, the Sunderland game, the players were actually clapped off at half-time. But then we seen a real negative second half display when we were in front. We've had this under previous managers as well. If you think back to Jose Mourinho, when we were 1-0 up, we kind of retreated and ended up drawing games. Antonio Conte, there was a lot of first half performances where we didn't play that well, but then in the second half, it would be like a different Spurs side, and we'd play on the front foot. So we've got to release some of this fear factor and this negativity that's set under the group. And I would like to see Spurs really go after West Ham and put the game beyond doubt. And then that'll give us some confidence going into the Burnley game in the Premier League the following weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are two must-win games. Spurs must get 6 points, definitely, out of the next 2 matches. Following their 3-0 win at the London Stadium in September, Tottenham are looking to complete the league double over West Ham for the first time since the 1920 season. West Ham have won just one of their last 8 league games against Tottenham, drawing 3 and losing 4. West Ham have lost all 6 of their Premier League London derbies this season, and Tottenham have won just 4 of their last 24 Premier League home games, drawing 6 and losing 14, while their 2 home wins this season is their lowest ever after 10 games in a league campaign. That has to improve, Gareth, doesn't it? The home form. Thomas Frank has said so many times, including in the pre-match press conference to this game, about we must turn the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium into a fortress. This home record has to improve.
The home record does have to improve, but Chris, it's not going to improve if we keep sort of performing the way we have. every team that comes to the Tottenham Hotspur stadiums and we a chance because of how we're playing. It's not like these games we're creating loads of opportunities and we've been a little bit unlucky. Keepers have had great games, or red cards have affected the game, or dodgy penalty. We haven't done enough in the games that we haven't won. They say that we should have got more on them. So I think if the performance levels improve, we'll get better results. It's as simple as that. Too many teams come to Tottenham at the moment and they're comfortable. They aren't put under pressure from the start of the game. And Spurs don't create enough chances. They put the game beyond their reach. So I would like to see that change against West Ham on Saturday. And look, yes, it is a derby, but West Ham are in a real poor run of form. And there's a lot of negativity around them, possibly even more negativity than there is around us at Spurs. So you couldn't ask for a better opportunity. They put it right on Saturday, really.
6 of Tottenham's 7 Premier League victories this season have been to nil. They've only won 1 of their last 21 league games when conceding at least once, drawing 6 and losing 14, beating Leeds United 2-1 in October. And what an interesting stat this is. This will be West Ham boss Nuno Espirito Santo's 3rd consecutive Premier League game against a side he has previously managed. Of course, Wolves, Nottingham Forest, and now Tottenham. Gareth, what is your predicted lineup? And also, let me ask, you mentioned about Xavi Simons earlier. Does this kind of give, with Conor Gallagher coming into the team, is this going to be a huge plus for someone like Xavi Simons, where Conor Gallagher is doing all of the dirty work and perhaps he gives the ball to Xavi Simons and it makes him, have that little bit more of a free role?
Yeah, we need somebody that can actually pass the ball forward, or once they pass the ball forward. So that'll help Xavi Simons, because we've been playing with crabs all season. Backways and sideways, and that just doesn't get the best out of Xavi Simons. And I thought that second half against Aston Villa, you seen the sign of a real top player there, the way he was moving, the little give and go he would have at times. And I think there was a double nutmeg at one stage as well. So we've been kind of starved of that flair this season. So I'm hoping that he's starting to settle. He needs to stay in the team now. I don't want to see him coming out of the team at any stage. He needs to be played on the form. So I would go with Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van de Ven, Spence, just because Udogie I don't think is ready to start. I think when Udogie is ready to start, I think there's a big argument for playing Spence on the right side and giving Porro a break. Because I think I'd like to see Jed get a run of games and that right back role to see if he's even better than he's been. I think he's done a really good job since he's been playing left back. Rarely lets us down. Midfield, difficult one. If Bergville is fit, I would go with Conor Gallagher, Lucas Bergville, and Xavi Simons, because Gallagher can play that role anyway, sitting deep, and he'll pass the ball forward. I think Polina's done okay recently, and I thought he had a brilliant impact against Aston Villa when he come on. He really did won a lot of tackles and we haven't seen that from Polina since the early part of the season. Spurs in that second half pressed Aston Villa. They went after them. They pressed them high up the pitch, and it suited Polina. So even this sit-back style of play doesn't really suit him. He's really good at nicking the ball and winning it back, and I thought it was arguably his best 45 minutes in a Spurs shirt against Aston Villa. I thought he was excellent. So, but I would definitely play Gallagher and Bergville, and I would play Xavi Simons in the 10 in front of those two. Then I would go with Tell through the middle. Miani hasn't done enough for me in recent games, so I go with Tell through the middle, Odebear on the left, and on the right. Who have I got? We're struggling for players, aren't we? That's the only thing. Miani might have to play. Yeah, we're probably going to have to play Miani through the middle, actually, because we're so short, and then it'll be Tell and Odebear on the wings. I can't think anyone else that's back. So I think he hasn't ready to start. So the front three doesn't inspire you there, Chris. Tell, Miani, and Odebear. That's the worry. I think Odebear has shown little bits and flashes. Tell, the odd game here and there. And Miani, for me, hasn't done it. the worry is if we do create opportunities, who's going to put the ball in the net, Chris? That's the worry, isn't it?
Well, this is a must-win, and I think that West Ham have been really poor this season. score prediction wise, I'm going to go for a 2-0 Tottenham win. What are you going to go for?
2-0 as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff.